As I stepped through the tightened door, my heart racing with fear, I could feel the cold metal pressing against my skin like an icy fist. The air was thick with anticipation as I approached the locked apartment basement, where the once abandoned rooms now seemed like they would never let me in again. The moment I entered, a sense of dread washed over me, and the walls around me began to blur into nothingness. Each step felt heavier than ever, as if the very ground beneath me was shifting and shifting, threatening to swallow me whole. The sound of my own breathing grew louder, almost imperceptible until it became a constant rumble in my chest, drowning out any other sounds. Inside the darkened space, there was silence, save for the occasional crackling of a flickering light or the distant cry of birdsong. But even amidst this eerie quiet, I could hear the faint hum of electricity, a constant reminder of the sinister presence lurking just beyond the locked doors. I had entered the locked apartment basement with an insistent mind, driven by the persistent whisper of an unseen presence that seemed to weave its way deeper into the fabric of reality. The air was thick with the scent of decay, as if the very walls themselves were holding their breaths in anticipation of what lay ahead. Each step felt like stepping into a labyrinthine maze, each door a hidden trap designed to catch anyone who ventured too close. As I approached the front door, the noise grew louder, closer to my ears. It wasn't a clamor of voices but rather the piercing scream of my own heartbeat, now amplified by the weight of the world around me. The footsteps echoed slowly, each step becoming more distinct, adding another layer of unease to the already ominous atmosphere. I paused at the threshold, my heart pounding in my chest, then turned, glancing back over my shoulder to see the figure standing behind me, his expression cold and calculating. The monster loomed before me, shadowy and impenetrable, his eyes glowing with a haunting intensity that mirrored the darkness within. His movements were fluid and precise, yet they seemed to emanate from a place of pure terror. He stepped into the dimly lit apartment, each step echoing the silent footsteps of the creature below. The room was eerily quiet, save for the occasional murmur of voices or the distant sound of a clock ticking. He reached the locked front door, fingers clasped tightly, and let out a deep breath, knowing he had to act quickly. The hinges creaked slightly as he pushed, and the lock clicked, revealing the metal inside. A moment later, the door swung wide, and he stepped inside, feeling a chill run down his spine. The room was filled with the smell of stale coffee and damp wood, which only served to heighten the sense of impending doom. The monster's presence was so palpable, it felt like an invisible hand grasping at him, preventing any escape. Each movement was a threat, every word an attack, and the fear that gripped him was overwhelming. His senses screamed warnings, but he couldn't ignore the reality around him. The darkness was alive, and his heart pounded in his chest as he fought against the beast's relentless pursuit. In the midst of chaos, there was a flicker of hope, perhaps, just maybe, He pushed through the door with a desperate cry, knowing the darkness was closing in. Each step was agonizingly slow, each breath heavy with the rush of adrenaline. He pressed his nose against the cold air, trying to find a way out, but every corner seemed a trap set by the monster's insidious plans. The ground beneath him gave way under the weight of his body, and he found himself trapped between two buildings, his legs weak and unable to move. The walls were thick and impenetrable, their surfaces rough and jagged, but he knew he couldn't give up now. The world outside was nothing but shadows, and he had nowhere to go but deeper into the abyss where the monsters had chosen to dwell. I could not muster the courage to leave the locked apartment basement, my heart pounding with an overwhelming sense of dread. The cold air pressed against my skin like a skeletal hand, clawing at my flesh until it was numb. My lungs felt like they were being stuffed full of bones, each inhalation weighing heavily on my chest. The ground beneath me gave way under the weight of my unyielding form, and I found myself trapped between two buildings, my legs weak and unable to move. The walls were thick and impenetrable, their surfaces rough and jagged, but I knew I couldn't give up now. The world outside was nothing but shadows, and I had nowhere to go but deeper into the abyss where the monsters had chosen to dwell.